StellarBlade will be a serious Game of the Year contender, and in this video I'm going to go over my thoughts after playing the demo extensively since it leaked around the beginning of March. Per an interview with the game director Kim Hyung-tae, he said StellarBlade was inspired by Sekiro, Bayonetta, and Nier Automata. Before getting into it, I'll give you some context on my experience so far. I have read every single piece of text in the demo. I've done a no damage boss rush and other fun stuff like retributions only, one-handed boss challenge, etc. I spent an entire stream practicing speedrunning the demo, and so I'd say I'm fairly passionate about this game. But I will also try to look at different aspects of StellarBlade from a more laid-back perspective, because I really think the developer, Shift Up, has done a great job at making the game approachable to all sorts of gamers. Okay, for this video I'll break down StellarBlade into three main parts: presentation, gameplay, and world building. Let's start with presentation. The first thing you see when booting up the demo is Eve lost in her thoughts. She's beautifully animated, and this is the first example of the care and polish Shift Up put into something as simple as the main menu. The song is incredibly calming too, a stark contrast to the chaos you're about to jump into when you select a new game. I'll talk about Eve's design since it's so well done. And it may not even be worth mentioning this, but I've heard there's some controversy over this game for some reason. I don't use Twitter, but from reading my comment section, I believe there's a small subset of people who think her design is unrealistic, so I'll briefly address this and then get back to talking about things that are interesting. Eve's body design was based off 3D scans of Korean model Shin Jae-eun, but let's imagine some alternate reality where curvy girls don't exist, or maybe you don't think Eve's face looks like a real person. There's this thing called artistic interpretation, and it's why every video game and creative media in general is different. I think StellarBlade's art style is really cool and striking, with the main cast all having their own distinct facial features to give them personality. But let's imagine again, maybe someone stumbled upon this game and they don't know anything about art or why anyone would create something that isn't one-to-one with reality. This next clip summarizes it pretty well.
That is a perfect copy of reality. But painting is not about replicating the world. It's about interpreting, improving on it, showing something you see.
Okay, moving on. So we've got a pretty main character giving Lara Croft, Bayonetta, and 2B energy, check. But what is Eve like? We learn Eve comes from an advanced civilization and it's her first time on Earth. This is made clear when you first land on Ado 7 and Eve comments, "So this is Earth's reign." Along with interactions like here, where Adam tells you to grab a fusion cell and Eve says, "Oh, this is the previous generation of the Infinity Cell." Or here, where she has no idea what books are, saying they're a waste of resources since they can only store 1 megabyte of data each. I thought this was funny, and I expect more fun interactions as Eve continues to learn about Earth. Eve is also a member of a high-tech combat squadron, and she has a ridiculously cool sword that doubles as a hair clip, which she stores in her iconic long ponytail. I'm already sold. Besides Eve, the rest of the presentation is also next level. The in-game models for bosses are based off incredibly detailed 3D scans of sculptures. The depth of field looks great and very cinematic. You can feel raindrops subtly through the DualSense haptics. Walking over puddles, you feel Eve's footsteps are heavier through the vibrations. Perfect parries are even more satisfying than they look on video because you hear that addictive metal clanging sound through your controller's speaker. All of this detail and polish adds to the immersion and helps you care more about what's going on because, per the official PSN listing, StellarBlade features a deep, unforgettable adventure. Unravel a gripping human fate story with mature themes, a thought-provoking narrative, and emotionally charged revelations from beginning to end. From the moment you land on Earth and that music for the Star Descent opening mission starts, I can already feel the emotion. Some of the music is composed by Studio Monica, who worked on Nier Automata, and some of it is in-house from Shift Up. Every song I've heard so far has been a joy to listen to, and it feels like the type of soundtrack that can really put a project over the top, propelling it to the status of timeless. I cannot wait to delve into the story and see what happens. It's hard to compare StellarBlade to one game because it really is a unique third-person action game, but there are definitely comparisons you could make to several great games. First, I will cover some basics about the combat. There's principles and then the style. The principles would be your core elements like parrying, dodging, attack strings, and beta skills, and learning patterns. Your own playstyle comes in to decide when to use these tools. You could play more passively and wait for openings, maybe with an emphasis on the stealth options, or you can play aggressively and create your own openings. Take this boss called Stalker, for example. You could parry his attacks, dodge away and shoot him until he's finished attacking, or jump over them and go in that way. But then, once you are attacking, there is a variety of attack strings at your disposal. They all have different uses, and there is a ton of fun to be had in experimentation to learn what's effective against different enemies. There isn't one de facto best approach to combat, everything is viable. You can't always parry because there are unblockable attacks, indicated by different colored circles, and these must be dodged. Yellow is a generic unblockable visual cue. Blue means you can use the blink ability on it to teleport behind them and cause stun. Pink means you can use the repulse ability and knock them back while exposing a weak point and boosting your ranged attack power temporarily. Then you've also got the stability system. Weak little enemies don't have any stability, but larger ones and bosses do. The stability gauge are these little yellow squares under their health and shields. Reduce it by perfect parrying, using pulse grenades, or using specific moves like the second hit of this beta skill called Triplet. At 0 stability, you're rewarded with a weak point reveal, plus the chance to command grab them for lots of damage. On to some comparisons. The first game I would draw similarities to is the newer God of War games. On a basic level, you've got your light and heavy attacks, along with a dodge button. Both games have a ranged attack option, though Eve will have various ammo types adding to the variety. You can also block and parry, kinda like Kratos. The equivalent of runic attacks would be your beta skills, which are available by holding down L1 and pressing the different face buttons. Like the Idun apples and Horns of Bloodmead, we've got collectibles that upgrade your health and beta energy after gathering them in intervals of 3. You also have a shop to upgrade different stuff, like the Dwarf Brothers upgrade gear for Kratos. And there's even some climbing and traversal to break up the action, although the StellarBlade climbing feels a little bit more fluid to me with the zoomed out angle and closer to something like Uncharted 4. However, it can feel faster than God of War after you spend more time playing. Saying it's just like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry is not accurate. It's not that level of fast or focused on aerial combat. The skill ceiling in those games is way more execution based. In both DMC and Bayonetta, the combat system is a gigantic playground where it's up to you how far you want to push it. Also, to complement the absurdly fast combat, your control over the protagonist in those games is more arcadey. Notice how Bayonetta turns on a dime, while Eve has layers to her animations as part of the immersion, because in real life you have to shift your momentum to turn around. And while there's some execution requirements in StellarBlade, it's predominantly knowledge-based. What do I mean? While in something like DMC3, even if I haven't played in years and forgot enemy patterns, I still have my invincibility frames from jumping, so it's more of a reaction. So I don't have to spend much time learning their attacks. In StellarBlade, getting knocked around is part of the experience. You aren't punished heavily by losing experience or anything when you die, you just go back to camp. At least on normal difficulty. Maybe we'll get a hard mode that disables regular parries and makes you drop your cash and upgrade points on death, who knows. And so, while it can be difficult, it isn't punishing like a Souls game. Thus, you feel more free to practice with the enemies and learn how to fight them in a way that is effective and fun for you. One more comparison to DMC here. You can do stuff like aim canceling to speed up some attack strings, which reminds me of Royal Guard canceling, but you can't parry in the air in StellarBlade like you can in DMC. With Sekiro, I haven't played it yet, so I can't comment, but I have watched a good amount of Ongbal videos, and the parrying looks similar to me. If you think the timing is comparable, please let me know in the comments. And if you saw my stealth kill showcase video, you may have seen how you can kill almost all of the enemies in the demo with stealth if you like, which is fun and something I thought looked cool in Sekiro. With Nier Automata, that game is much faster and a bit less methodical in approaching enemies. There, we also have tons of aerial possibilities, and 2B's attacks don't feel like they carry the same weight as Eve's do. More of the similarities to Nier would be in the world building. I'll keep this one short because there's so much left to learn about, and I'd rather dig into it in a full game review. But as soon as I heard the Eido 7 overworld music, I was fully convinced this would be something special. If the team weren't as passionate as I believe they are, the soundtrack would have just been phoned in. They spared no expense in quality from what I've heard. And after reading through all of the flavor text, which I compiled in my lore video where I narrate all of it, I felt so impressed with the amount of detail and effort to flesh out the world. And what's really cool is if you aren't interested in it and just want to enjoy the awesome gameplay, unreal music, and stunning visuals, you can. This stuff is all just extra. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but different immersive factors like the awesome haptic feedback, the dynamic soundtrack that changes if you're in combat or exploring, these cool flashback sequences that uncover more details and build relationships between your main characters, all the flavor text in the world, and the beautiful graphical fidelity have got me so excited. StellarBlade is such a huge vibe. I could sit at this freaking camp doing nothing but listening to the music and be happy. Has anyone else got that feeling? That concludes my thoughts from the demo experience. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate your time. So, what are your thoughts? Do you agree, disagree? I haven't even mentioned how there's a whole nother mechanic to the combat and burst energy, which we don't have access to in the demo, sword surfing, and fishing. Do you already have your copy pre-ordered? For me, I'm getting 2 physical copies. It's a his-hers kind of deal, and I look forward to streaming my blind playthrough here on YouTube. See you guys April 26th. Take care.